Guys, what's up? It's Tyler with Hook Sets Are Free. It is 9:30 p.m. here on Saturday night, December the 4th. I've got a friend, Matthew Acevedo, who is always on the channel. What's up, Matt?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What's up,
Cool.
dude? How's it going?
What up?
So I kind of screwed that up. Had accidentally deleted the stream on YouTube just because I had created it in multiple places.
Uh,
Was trying to do this for the first time, and yeah, had never invited somebody and shared a link before. So I had like multiple streams set up, and when I went to go live, it said it had already been deleted on YouTube. So just kind of recreate
ah,
it. Hopefully, people get the uh, the notification. We got a couple people in here already, which is awesome. What's up, Adam? How you doing tonight, man?
let me refresh mine. Let me put down my speaker because I know it's gonna be an echo.
You know, it acts like it's supposed to be fine, and as far as I'm concerned, you sound all right now. Adam got the notification. Hey, big gulps. What are you up to tonight, man?
None. Just pretty much. I didn't get to go fishing today, but hopefully we'll tomorrow. That's what I'm planning on doing.
Right on. Yeah, you guys aren't frozen yet, right? You said it's
Nah,
about the
not yet.
same,
Luckily.
about 40 degrees. You said.
Yeah, about 40, 43 ranges here and there. Sometimes we get some
Yeah,
sunny days that, keeps it a little warmer, I guess. But it
for
is
sure.
coming to where it's gonna get there.
Yeah, it's chilly. Yeah, I just saw a post from Hello Bass on Instagram. Goofing around, uh, throwing a frog on hard ice. Just saying that ice fishing sucks. Looks like up in Minnesota and up north, it's definitely frozen this time of year. So we're kind of at that point. But
Yeah.
Adam, if you're still in here, let us know how our audio sounds and whether there's any sort of echo on either of our end. Because again, this is the first time I've done this. I do have a package that is the main reason that I invited Matt on tonight. And sorry, do you go by Matt or Matthew?
Either one is good. Matt's though, it don't matter.
All right. Um, but I did get a package from a super generous guy that I was introduced to through James on Smack and Bass on Instagram. And I did a live stream with him on Instagram just like a week or so ago. And he was talking about this dude who he had ordered a custom rod from. And that guy just happened to join in the live stream and said he would send me this bait for free. And I did not believe
Hmm.
him. Um, I don't even know if this is exactly what I think it is. It's entirely possible that it could be a knockoff, but I understand that you're familiar with both. So I'm going to give people just a minute or two to hop in here, and then I will open it up and we will see whether it's the real deal or if it's
Yeah.
a knockoff. But I'm fairly certain,
Little
yeah, I'm
knockoff.
fairly certain that's from Debo, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I know that you're familiar with both. Um, well, I assume you are. Do you own any of the DRT baits as of now?
Yeah, I got actually my box right here. Got the
Oh, hell yeah. So are those all tinies?
Yeah, these are
Just
the
basically.
tinies. I got a big one back here hanging and another one behind it. And then
Okay.
this is a JDM color. This one right here is a pink ayahuasca, I think, or
Awesome.
ayahuasca. I don't even know how to pronounce it, to be honest.
Sure.
But it's a
Yeah.
see-through color, but it
Right.
also has a hologram in it. I wish it would pick it up, but it's not. I don't know why.
That looks pretty damn translucent, but
Yeah,
I
but it's
believe
really
it.
not. It's weird. That's what's weird about the from far
Yeah.
away. See, I don't know. That's weird.
Right. Well, webcams can do that to you for sure. So, yeah.
But and then I got the Perch.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I've been getting much more interested in perch pattern swim baits over the last year or two, just because there are a couple of bodies of water here, reservoirs in the Denver metro area that hold some very large smallmouth, but most of them tend to be offshore. So it's just a matter of time till I can actually get something in the way of a boat, kayak, or float tube to get out on the water and access those fish in deeper water. But
Yeah.
one of those has the state record smallie in it, and the state record was
Hmm.
only caught a couple of years ago, just shy of 7 pounds. So I personally haven't caught a smallmouth bigger than like 4, and would love to start catching some bigger than that. So I know
Yeah.
that those fish are big time perch eaters, and so there are certain baits, even just like the Megabass Canada, that
That's a
I've
good
made
bait.
a point to pick up in perch pattern. Um, because a lot of those fish feed on perch. There are a lot of perch in those bodies of water, and if I were a bass, I'd probably be eating perch, dude. Uh,
Yeah.
us
Makes
humans
sense, man.
like
That's how
perch.
I feel too, you know. I
Yeah,
love perk
exactly.
patterns. That's why, like I said, I showed you pictures of stuff, I like perch stuff everywhere.
Yeah, that's one of your newer additions, huh?
Yeah, that's the two-faced herring.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's like a little crank. And like I said, it's tiny. It's really not big at all. It looks big on the camera, but it's pretty small.
What, 4.5, 5 inches, something like that?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's about 5 inches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me get a measuring tape. I got one right here.
Yo,
Yep, five
Abe,
inches. Yep.
what's up, Abe? What's up, Miguel? How you guys doing? We got 6 people in here, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this package and see what the deal is. I also told Debo, since he wasn't streaming tonight, and I just checked on his Hawkeyes, and they're getting absolutely destroyed by
Yeah.
Michigan, and I feel bad for him because he's a diehard, but it is what it is. I said, listen, if after
Yeah.
the game you've got time, you want to hop on and hang out or even join the stream, you're welcome to. So we'll see about that. I
That'd be
might
cool.
check my Instagram. What's up?
I said that'd be cool.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome, especially considering when I joined his stream like a month ago, he didn't even know that I had a YouTube channel at all. So, yeah, it would be cool to see him in here. It would be even cooler to have him join. Damn, these things are
Yeah.
sealed really well. And guys, it appears to be real. It appears to be real. So
You have some good guys out there, man.
what's that?
I said you have some good, really good guys out there.
Dude, I don't know why somebody that I've never met before would willingly offer this to me free of charge.
Yep.
Of course, I'm not going to just let him get away with that. I did say that I would send him some stuff in return, especially some Megabass jerk baits and a few other things to try and make it worth his while. But it's a tricky thing because, like, I'm not a swim bait enthusiast, and this bait definitely fits into that category. And so, ordinarily, if somebody was going to trade for a bait like this, it would be something fairly high dollar, something a little bit rare, that's desired, and I don't really have much in the way of that, as you guys know, because I tend to try and cater to the masses, and I tend to try and get a little bit more familiarized with what is mainstream and what I like before really venturing out and trying new things or super expensive things. So this is definitely uh, the real deal. This is
Yeah.
not a knockoff,
Yeah. And
but
that color, that's actually one of my favorite colors, and the one that gets really the bit the most for me. So
yeah. And honestly, this thing has never been fished. I mean, obviously, it was in its package, but that's not proof that hasn't been fished.
No,
But
it hasn't been fished, trust me. If it was, you would know, because clash baits,
do they get
within
hook
the
crash
moment,
pretty?
pretty much you put them in the water, and about like 15 minutes later, you'll know they get scratched up pretty easily.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm gonna need a little bit of a rundown from you, man.
Yeah,
So first of all, the main thing that I notice is one, this is a low float, right?
yep.
As far as I'm concerned, this is the more popular model. Is that correct? It's gonna.
Yeah, the low float is more known for pretty much a lot of people really want that one more specifically than the high float.
It's a little
Um,
bit more versatile. Can be fished a little bit lower or fast up high, or what's the deal with
yeah,
it?
it's pretty much a more lower, pretty much crank style type bait. It's gonna be more in that 2 feet to 3 feet, range
Sure.
wise. Um,
Awesome.
you
Well, and
can
that
get a little
suits
deeper
me
if
just
you,
fine. Either one, are going to be shallow runners, and that's fine by me. But
yeah,
the main thing that I notice is that this thing only comes with this tail straight in the package. Is
yeah, you have to
that
get
standard?
another one.
You got to get the other tails to go with
Yeah,
it.
you have to get the straight one yourself.
Okay, and now that tail that you showed me on the full size Clash 9, is that the straight tail or is that a different tail, that longer
No,
one?
that one is the straight tail. That one I just showed you. Yeah, this one does not come with in the box of the Clash 9 either.
Right.
You have to get these, but like I said, they're pretty easy to get. You just get them on DRT USA,
Yeah.
and they're pretty easy to get.
Okay.
Um, they're not too
So
bad or too
while
expensive.
the baits are out of stock on a regular basis,
Yeah.
the accessories are not, right?
Nah, most of the time you can get the accessories, except for the lips. Certain lips sometimes are usually out of stock, but the
Sure.
tails usually are a pretty good amount of them are in.
All right. So talk to me about what I have and what I should get. Um,
Um,
what's the difference between this lip and another one that you could get?
Well, really, the one main lip I use specifically is the minnow lip, which is the smaller one, a little bit smaller than that one. That one actually can make the
Okay.
bait go about like 3 to 4 feet. That's the deep lip for that
This one?
one right there. Yeah.
Okay.
And so the other one I have that are pretty much on my other baits that I have right here. This one here is a little shorter, and these are meant more for a little bit more shallow water, which is why I use them since I'm fishing from the bank. But it tends to not, get a chance of hooking up a little bit more.
Right.
Um, but it also still goes a pretty good depth, about 2 feet.
Okay.
If you want to weight it a little bit more, it'll probably go a little deeper. But
Right.
or use a little thinner line. And
Sure.
but the tails also matter as well, the way you position them. If you have them down the downward, it will actually want to make the bait want to go down. And
Versus
so,
what? Can I alter this existing lip or no?
no, the lips you can't alter them. You just got to take them out and then pretty much change them. Some guys turn them around and put them backwards, and they
Right.
say that gives it a different action. But
Okay.
I don't know. I never tried that actually.
Well, the only thing that I notice is that there's uh, a contour,
Yeah,
on the lip itself.
yeah.
Can you guys see that? So, um, that this is on the back side. So I suppose if you flip around this bill, that will push water differently. Um, you know, it that's entirely possible. I don't know how it would change the action necessarily, but what you're saying is I can take the bill out and flip it around and it'll still fit back in. What's the trick to getting it out with messing it up? Or can you just
In the beginning, it's going to be a little bit hard to do because of the paint is a little thick there. But really, what you're just going to do is take your thumb, put it on the corner right here,
yeah,
and then push it to the side, twist the bait, pretty much. So let me redo that again for you.
yeah, dude, I don't want to crack it.
So trust me, it's going to feel like that. And right, so you put your thumb like that, and then you're going to want to twist in the opposite direction like this.
Right.
It come right out.
Oh God, it feels like it's gonna crack.
Yeah, trust me, it feels like it, man.
This plastic is relatively thin. I'm
But
nervous.
it's strong as shit, man. I'm telling you. Odds of it cracking is really hard.
Oh well, I'm freaking scared. I don't even know if I want to try it right this minute. I'll have to do it later. Um, golly. All right, so tell me how the action of this standard tail versus the straight tail
Yeah.
operates. Why use one versus the other? And can this tail do anything different, or this is the orientation? It doesn't have a separate mode, or
Oh, no,
does it?
no. That tail does do different. You could flip it upside down, which is what I was saying, which is a different mode.
Sure. Okay, so this is kind of flipped up right now.
Yeah.
And so if you turn it upside down, then it's going to be facing down and cause
Yeah,
the
and
bait
if
to do
that
different.
wants to actually make the bait go down a little bit more, and that actually helps when you wanna crank the bait, and, that's what I tend to use it in that mode, but,
Okay,
when you're
so with the
using it.
lip in, you might want to flip the tail down. Is that what you're
Yeah,
suggesting?
I do that, but you can use it in regular the way it is right now,
Right.
but that
Now,
wants to keep the bait a little bit up.
okay. Now I feel a little bit more comfortable forcing the tail out. How is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh God, man. I'm just nervous, I don't know
What
why.
I do is when I'm storing my baits, I tend to not keep the tail on them.
Sure.
Just
So I got that off there pretty easy, but essentially what we're looking at is a tail that is flipped up versus a tail that is down. And you're suggesting that your style of fishing with the bill in and the tail down is going to allow the bait to stay or even dive just a little bit deeper. Is that right?
yeah, because it the
Whereas
way
if
the
you take the
tail's
lip
designed.
out, if you take the lip out, you might want to keep it up in order to allow that bait to stay a little bit higher in the column or act the way that it was intended. I mean, I intended
Pretty
is a
much.
funny word because there's so many different things you can do with this bait, but um why do you keep the tail off while you're storing them just so they don't get twisted up or what?
No, pretty much just that, and also it's easier to store, but also, because it doesn't mess up the tail over time, because they say that keeping them in there causes the tail to get messed up over time.
Well, sure,
But
if you're letting them sit sideways, then of course that tail's going to bend, right?
yeah, and then also inside the joint, the actual rubber itself will become smaller, almost compact. So
Ah,
then it almost will become easier to come out. So
right,
by
because it
keeping
like
them out.
compresses while in there, huh? So you
Yeah,
kind of keep the tail fresher by having it
pretty
out.
much. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Now, talk to me about how the bait acts because in terms of the videos that I've seen, at least the Japanese guys fishing them are working these things absolutely crazy, really
Yeah.
fast. Um, but I hear a lot of guys here in the U.S. saying that they don't always fish it really fast.
I'm
Uh,
doing some crazy stuff with the bait, man. Like, I don't even know many people do the stuff that I'm doing with the damn bait. But the what I'm usually doing is, besides from the original intent of using it like cranking it down, I'll
yeah,
burn it with. But also, there's a new tail they have out that I've been using as well. But they had this new tail that they made as well that's on their website, and it's called the transfer tail that they made. And let me see.
yeah.
Yeah, here it is. And so this tail is a little different from the original. The originals are a little bit more sharper. And
That looks pretty similar, but what makes it different? Why get the transfer
well,
tail?
this one allows the bait to be a lot more stable. This tail alone, which is just crazy. I don't even know how it does that. But it just alone, it's a little bigger than the other one, and it's a little bit wider as well.
Yeah,
So I think it helps stabilize the bait overall, and it allows you to burn the bait. I mean, you can full on crank the bait as fast as you want, and it pretty much stays true without blowing out. And then
sure.
when you stop, it causes the bait to almost like flutter around, like
Right.
almost um, glide away, and
Right.
it's a pretty nice action to it. But it just keeps the bait a little bit more stable. And
Okay.
like I said, but what I've been doing with these baits is just what I try to do is in the spring I was mainly casting along the edge of banks and just kind of reeling it in, then pausing and then twitch it, and that would
Yeah.
just make the bait pretty much almost stay in place and just go side to side.
Right. More like a
And
walking bait. Is so this guy who sent me this bait, um, he said that his favorite way to work it is what is called dead walking. Is that essentially what you're doing?
pretty much that's exactly what I was doing.
Just a very slow, close to the top, just walking it side to side.
Yep.
Okay.
But
Which is
then what happened
interesting
was,
because that is something that you don't see when you look up Japanese videos of this bait and how to work it. I mean, they are just they
yeah,
will work it really fast and then kill it, and it jumps out to the side, and then super fast. And like you
or
mentioned,
they'll have it in the glide mode.
yeah, exactly. So that's the thing is there's not a lot of videos explaining, okay, orient the bait this way without the lip, with the tail in this orientation, and fish it like this. Now, switch and fish it like this.
Yeah,
And these modes and these retrieves are really best suited for these situations. What you just hear is that it's a modular bait that can be fished in so many different ways, but that doesn't explain
yeah, no.
really why and when you
And
should try one thing over another.
and one thing too is that when I was fishing in the spring, they would hit that bait and I would catch a pretty good amount. I've caught like 6 fish in one day off the tiny clash. But what happened was in the summer, it got to the point where that dead twitching wasn't working for some reason anymore. And near me, I have this almost like a cavern pipe that goes over a railroad that I'm near. And I've always looked at it, I'm like, damn, that current looks good at a bass. We're hanging there. And
Right.
then I always saw a little bluegill hanging underneath that current. And
Sure.
I was like, damn, how are they doing that? So then I put a jig in the current and I went to look at it and I was like, damn, there's no current on the bottom. I was like, there's just
Interesting.
like current on top. So then I would see all of a sudden this green flashing and I was like, dude, that has to be bass. And sooner or later, I kept looking and looking, and then all of a sudden, I saw this like 3 pounder come out of nowhere and just smash the hell out of this baby bluegill when it was bumping against the rocks. And I was like,
Interesting.
"Holy hell!" So I grabbed my tiny clash and put it in the current with the rod tip in the water, and just had the tiny clash drift back in the current and go down. It dived about 3 feet, and was
Right.
underneath that current, just hanging there and I would just wasn't even moving the bait. It was just swimming in the current. And I was like, just let it stay there, and then I'll reel it in, put my hit my thumb on my spool, let it go back, reel it again, and then all of a sudden it just got hit, and I was like, holy hell. And I
That's
got
pretty
him, and I
sweet.
caught 3 fish back to back with a dude right next to me, and he was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just letting my bait cast back in the current."
Right.
And he's like, "What kind of bait you using?" And I pulled it up, and he's like, "Damn, that's a fish I use for like tuna fishing." And I was like, I was like, "No," I was like, "I'm catching bass on this baby."
Yeah. That's
But
hilarious. Yeah, I think it's super cool that that you were able to, through a little observation, see what kind of was happening under the water, how the fish were positioning, and see a bass attack a bluegill, to be able to give you some clues on what to do there, and then
man,
actually have success on that
it was a
style of
pretty cool
fishing.
discovery, man. And I was
That's
so
badass.
mad when they took and dammed that spot up. And literally, it was like a month later, they came and they just took these damn pads and put it all around. And I was like, what the hell are they doing? And then all of a sudden, they took the pipe out, the giant pipe, took it out, and then removed it and put two other small pipes next to it, but up higher. And I was like,
What?
no, no, no. And it
That's
ruined my
annoying.
whole way of fishing that technique because I was hopefully trying to do that for next year because I
Right.
found that out kind of late in the season. So
Sure.
I was like, hold up, I can use this pipe for next year and try to catch some bigger fish that are traveling through this pipe.
Right.
And it just got fucking shut down, and I was so pissed,
That's too
man.
bad. Damn. Literally.
But the other two pipes kind of give out a stream that comes down and almost like a waterfall. So there's still bass that hang near there,
Right.
but and wait for bunker, which is what comes through there to spawn. It's not
Interesting.
shad, which I
Right.
noticed like a couple weeks ago.
But I
And
always thought of bunker as more of like a saltwater fish, is it not?
yeah, it is actually. And the bunker come into the Delaware and spawn just like the shad do. But
Interesting.
in here, these bass have the ability to have that rare type of forage that you wouldn't really other bass would get unless
Interesting.
they're connected to the ocean. And this bass eat them. And I was actually saw where they dammed this spot up. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of bunker just stuck to the side of that area because they wanted to go back out of that hole again. And I was
Right.
like, damn, that's kind of screwed up. And but sooner or later that spot flooded with rain and the rain came up. And
Interesting.
all of a sudden, next couple of days, I came back and I didn't see not one damn bunker there. I was like, damn, they must have went right through.
Right. Yeah,
So they were smart, man, and it really shows you how these fish can travel and remember places to go through and
for
pretty
sure.
much do stuff that they didn't even know before they were born, you know?
Right. Yeah,
So
absolutely. So the second thing I was going to say is I get that a lot too. Even when I'm throwing, just a 5 to 6 or 7 inch bait, I'll be cruising the bank and just walk by either other fishermen or just bystanders, people that are walking in the area that think I'm absolutely nuts, you know, or that while I'm casting, people walking by will be like, "Oh, we got a fish,"
yeah,
as I'm reeling it in. I'm like, "Yeah, you're
I'm like,
ridiculous."
no.
Actually, that's a lure that I'm trying to catch a fish on, but yeah, it does look pretty realistic. That's funny.
Yeah, I get that every
So,
time when I'm at trout lakes.
yeah, for sure. Well, and that's why earlier this year I had to post like a reel on Instagram of this thing just sitting in the current. Um, it looks exactly like a rainbow trout, and just
Yeah.
sitting there, just wagging back and forth. Uh, Absolutely insane. Even a bunch of people on Instagram were asking if that was a fish and why I didn't just grab it, because it was sitting there right in front of me. But pretty hilarious. Um, so yeah, what else should I know about the Tiny Clash?
Man, I haven't
So
even started really.
right, so
But
you're
to
saying
be
I
honest,
need to get the smaller lip on it.
yeah, that
Um,
smaller
yeah,
lip will allow you to just overall keep it a little more shallower. Allow
yep,
you when you're pretty much just using it as a crank wise, to keep that bait from getting too deep. You'll be able to at least twitch it a little faster too, because of the lip overall, and you can get it to move a little faster without it wanting to roll
right,
more. So, but that tail also is what keeps the bait, stationary and pretty much helping it keep it stable
right.
overall. So
So
that
with the
has a part to
smaller
play with it.
lip, which tail and which orientation of the tail are
Well,
you
the
typically?
with this lipping, I usually, like I said, I keep it down so that it gets a little bit deeper with this lip,
Okay,
but it still stays in that shallow range to where I'm fishing, that's max of like 5 to 6 feet, but mainly usually like 3 feet. It does not get snagged pretty much.
okay,
And
but same concept when using the lip, whether it's the big or the small, you're using this V tail facing down, right?
pretty much, yeah. And then sometimes I do face it up when I'm just overall just pretty much cranking it and just trying to go like slow. Because
Okay,
when the tail's up, it does help keep that bait nice. Gives it a different action itself, but it gives it a nice hunting action, sort of like you can say. It keeps that
right,
bait waddling side to side.
sure. Now how wide is this thing swimming
It'll
ordinarily?
go as it's going. It'll just be like this, pretty much.
Okay, all right,
But it's not really crazy wide. It's not much.
okay. Um, Now, how often are you fishing it without a bill at all?
Um, I tend to fish the bill most of the time, but
Okay.
when I'm in, like, say, the spawn or post spawn, I'm pretty much using as a glide. So I take
Right.
that
So
lip out and have the tail down.
without the bill, effectively this thing turns into a glide bait, right?
Yeah, pretty nice glide bait.
Okay. And how would you compare the action to any other glide on the market? Because I do notice right away that this thing has a very aggressive
Yeah, that's
joint,
the thing.
right?
It has its own unique glide to itself. It almost glides on itself, which is what it's very good at. And
Okay.
it's very good if you want to stay in one spot for a pretty good long time.
Okay.
Um, it has a good the K9 actually has the best glide compared to the Tiny Clash, but the
Sure.
Tiny Clash will do it pretty good as well. You just got to be a little bit more finesse with it. You can't be
Right.
really too much with it, or if you're using your reel, just kind of just give it a little half bumps, but
Right.
don't go like full cranks and stuff like that, like you can with the K9.
Yeah.
And but this one it will glide out and it will just go like that, but not like that in a sense I'm trying to show as the wideness wise. It will go like this
Sure.
and glide on itself like just like that in spots. So pretty much if it's like sideways, it's only going to go to like there. It's not going to travel far distances side to side.
Right. And
So
I'm honestly not surprised to hear that, given that the joint is so aggressive that,
yeah.
if you work the bait aggressively, it's probably going to look a little funky. It probably needs to be a little bit more subtle in terms of how you work the bait. And this joint looks fairly loose too.
Yeah, it has some movement in it, yeah. But it does not really affect the way the bait moves or the way it runs. The bait is
Sure.
extremely tuned really well. You'll be surprised. Which is what I find weird about the knockoff and the real one, because you can tell that the blank is different overall. It's not the same, but it's pretty damn accurate to the point where you would barely even be able to tell if you was really, really looking at it from far away. But
Right.
there is a difference in a way.
Sure.
But like I said, it's the only like the main difference is that this what's it called? The real Clash does not make any noise at all. Like it
Really.
has like barely any type of noise, and the actual knockoff
Whoa.
is almost like a rattle, has almost like a rattle in type of noise.
Interesting.
So that is what gives this bait the sort of crank that it has, which is it has a wobble to it more than anything, which is why I put this weight on the bottom and that
Sure.
kind of centered it down in the middle and gave it less of like a wobble in it, and it kind of still had a wobble, but it wasn't as dramatic as it was. And also I put the new tail on it
Right.
from Clash 9, that one that's supposed to help stable the bait, and that also helped as well. And if you look, I have it facing down as well.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. And then I also have the regular lip on here from Clash, and I don't have the knockoff lip. I took the knockoff lip off and put an actual real Clash lip
All right.
on
So
and a real tail, and I use the original hooks.
got it.
So
Interesting.
I try to
Yeah.
keep it all original as much.
Yeah. These are definitely um, EWG style hooks that come on here. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're sticky sharp Japanese hooks, but do you and would you ever swap these hooks out?
If you say if they bend or they somehow get broken or anything
Sure,
like
sure.
that, you can use these hooks right here. Actually, it's kind of crazy that I have them. That I got some, and but they're pretty much the same exact hooks, and they're made from Owner. They're called they're right here, Stingers. They're
Yep.
the ST35 MFs.
35 MF.
And if you
Okay.
look at the package, it actually shows you how the hook is positioned. It has a 150-degree angle on the shank. So it's
Interesting.
almost flat side to side. So I'll take one and show you pretty much what it is. And so if you look at it, it's almost exactly, look. flat.
Right.
So it doesn't have that triangle pattern or shape. So it's
Right.
almost exactly just like the clash hook that you can get.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I did not notice that. That these two hooks are almost in line with each other.
Yep. And that allows those hooks to be on the side so that the fish grab from the side and don't get hooked
Right.
right away.
That's fascinating. Now, what type of gear are you throwing this on? You know, the Tiny Clash is pretty reasonably sized at 6.6 inches, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's 6.6 inches.
So, what does this thing weigh? About two?
It's, I think, 2.3 ounces or 2.6 at the
Okay.
most.
Yeah,
At
that
the
sounds about
most.
right. Now, what are you throwing this thing on?
I throw it on my pretty much 795 Fury
Yeah.
mostly. I have gotten away with my, I think it's my heavy jigging rod. Has gotten away with it, and I've caught plenty of fish on it, no problem. But I still like it on my Fury rod because it still has that enough bend on it, and it
Yeah.
handles it really well because that 795 has a nice bend to it. It's not too stiff, not
Yep.
too heavy, and
Right.
it has a nice action to it. It has that little bit of delay to it that I like.
And you're a copolymer guy, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So what diameter line are you using with it?
I use 20 pound,
Okay. Yeah.
17 sometimes if the lake is a little bit pretty clear. I'm
Right.
using 17,
Okay.
and it
Yeah,
works pretty well.
I've got 20-pound fluorocarbon on.
If you want to use fluorocarbon, it will work.
Yeah.
It's no problem.
Yeah. At least that's
Just
what I've
give it
got
a little
pulled up
second.
on my.
That's all I say. Just pretty much give it about 1 second, and just as soon as you feel that tick, just say, a word and pretty much set that hook.
Right. For sure. Okay. Right on. Now let's talk about kind of the history of the bait and get around to the knockoff because you know this is a bait that has been around, right? It's not new, but it is a collaboration bait, right? So working class zero
Yeah, that one
and
is.
DRT, right? How does that come into play? Was this a bait by DRT in the first place? Where did working class zero come in? And when and why did this bait become the hype bait that it is? And how have we gotten to the point where, from an enthusiast perspective, it's probably right up there with the most desirable swim baits on the market right now, right?
Yeah. I think it's mainly due to pretty much, a lot of YouTubers putting it out. A lot of big YouTubers mainly too, and a lot of people see that an advertisement for, a lot of the younger crowd, and then it spreads by word, and then also a lot of other people that have been using it for a while now that have shown cast to catch videos,
Right.
and then
Finally, the
stuff like
word's
that.
just kind
But
of getting
overall,
out.
what was that?
Is the word just finally kind of getting out? People are, unable to keep
Well,
the secret any
now
longer.
the more people are figuring out that it's like a popular bait that they can get, but it's been around for a while now that people been using them. Like I know people that have been using them for 4 or 5 years,
Right.
and but a lot of people sometimes now think they're still as hype as they are, but in the secondhand market, nobody even like really buys them as much as they do, and they don't really make as much money off them as they used to.
Okay.
But they still sell them because some people just want to get rid of them because they're not using them or whatever it may be.
Right.
But they still catch fish, and a lot of people that are uh, big swim bait fishermen, they always have these in their arsenal or tackle with them because they always say if their other baits aren't working, big bait wise or swim bait, they end up throwing these tiny clashes or clash nines on, and they'll catch a fish off of them. So it's really that type of bait that, you know, if nothing else is working, they'll just end up tying that on and trying that because they can do so many other things with it that these other glide baits or whatever it is they're using can't do. So
Sure.
it gives them that little bit more options and freedom to mess around with, maybe doing a little bit more different things with the bait and catching that fish that maybe wouldn't have bit just the glide or whatever it was they were using. So, you know, and that as well, you know, brought more people to the bait because they had more options to use the bait and overall, you know, have different options versus having to just get one bait and be stuck with just one or two options of how to use that bait or how to like overall the only thing they can really do with it because they can't change the tail or, you know, change the lip or anything like that. So
Right.
but and then pretty much the reason why it got real popular overall, and you know, from the West Coast really were the ones that started off and started using this mainly first, and then just started shooting everywhere. Like I said, because of the YouTube, pretty
Right.
much brought it to the mass. But DRT was uploading their videos on their channel they had pretty much from the start.
Yeah.
They have old videos on their channel from a long time ago, and I actually found out from I think DRT from I think it was Oliver, no, not Oliver Knight, it was Crazy Bass Fisherman,
Sure.
pretty sure. And when he was using them way back then as well, and then also
Yeah, I
Oliver
did notice
Knight, I found
that.
out about him too, but it was he started using them uh, not too recently, but not too uh, back then, really back then.
Who, Jeff?
No, Oliver Nye when he was because he unless he was I'm going off of the posts and pretty much
Right.
videos that I've seen of him posting, and he would
Sure.
mainly talk about the eye slide. I remember back in the day, and that's what got me into swim bait specifically. But DRT wise, I don't think he got into that until like 2017.
No, that sounds about
Yeah,
right. Because I mean, he's been sponsored by Megabass and Defiant forever, right? Um,
yeah,
it's really only been more recently that he's been working with DRT, right?
yeah. My knowledge, you know, that I
Yeah,
know.
but you're right that you know Jeffrey the King, aka Crazy Bass Fisher, has kind of always been one step ahead of most,
Yeah,
and pretty active on YouTube as well. So yeah, there's definitely videos dating back, I don't know, 4+ years ago of him talking about these baits, and
yeah,
then even the larger versions with the ghost, and then even like the frenzy,
yeah.
which is, by the way, to you guys who don't know, that's a 16-inch version of this guy,
He
which
posted a
absolutely,
Instagram post of the frenzy, him taking it to the lake the other day.
yeah. So while this thing is a reasonably sized swim bait, imagine it being almost 3 times bigger. And what's fascinating about that frenzy, which literally
It'd be like
would be
almost
taking up almost the entire screen right now,
like
um,
say this is the ghost,
which is gigantic. What's that, 12?
and then look at the time.
How,
The frenzy's bigger than this.
right. How big is the ghost?
The ghost I think is 12 inches. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Let
good
me get my
Lord.
ruler. Let me
The
see.
thing that I find fascinating about those, which I don't know if I'll ever throw
Oh
them,
no, 10 inches.
but really, that looks bigger than that, dude. Um, wow. So the cool thing about those giant baits, uh, compared to other baits of their size, is that they don't weigh very much. Is the ghost hollow like the frenzy is, or is it not? Because I understand that the frenzy, for being a 16-inch clash bait,
Yeah,
only weighs 10 ounces.
yeah. It's
Which
actually
I say only, but that's
it's almost
giant,
as close to the ghost, which is pretty shocking to me.
right? But it's
And
got a
it's due to that
special,
hollow
but it's got
technology
like
due
a
to it.
hole right here, and
Yeah,
then in the rear, right? So that water can pass through.
Yep.
And
That's
so
the way he weighted it.
right.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
a smart.
fascinating.
It's very smart.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, that's pretty much how the system is like weighted through the bait, and then that's exactly how it sinks and creates the bait to pretty much become like leveled with the water, almost like suspending.
Right.
So it's pretty unique and crazy how he designed that or figured that out.
Totally. Yeah. So we haven't addressed anybody in the comments, and I am sorry for that. We got 15 people in here right now. So for me and my small channel, that's a relatively reasonable crowd. Um, and I apologize, guys, for not
Yeah, I'm sorry
addressing you.
too. I wish it was a lot more easier to do so.
Yeah, it's tough to kind of be engaged in the conversation when we're talking about some specific stuff, but then also, mention the comments and what people are talking about. Miguel said the riser jack just got a new lip too. What do you know about that?
Yeah, I actually got two on the way.
The new lips?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty cool. I actually like them a lot, and that's why I kept the bait for a while because I knew about them coming out from literally Fish Arrow. They had posted on their YouTube channel like, I mean, like in the middle of the summer. I was like, dude, where are these things at? And they never came. And I was like, until then, finally, Japan Import Tackle had some on their website for pre-order,
Right.
and I got some, and they're pretty reasonable too. And they give the bait a really good, pretty much walking action, and I like them a lot. And they make a good sound too, like a pooping sound, which is pretty good.
Interesting. Yeah, Justin also says if I go ahead and force this a little too hard and I crack it, that you're going to send me a fresh bill. Is that right? Joking. Um, so,
Hey, I'll send it.
oh, get out of here. I might force it before this is over. I'm just nervous. Literally, guys, the package was sealed. It arrived today. Um, Wesley from Instagram was. I don't know why. I just have to assume it's for what you talked about earlier in why people are now selling them on the secondary market, and that a lot of it has to do with guys who have acquired one too many of them, um, and just don't really have the need, or perhaps are even getting to the point where they've fished this bait so much that they're used to it, or that their fish are used to it, and that they kind of need to move on to other things and keep it as a backup, as you referred, as like a if they're not eating anything else. So my only guess is that he had a couple in this color pattern, um, and one was just sitting. But yeah, I was damn surprised that he
Yeah,
even offered it. I tried to say no, and he insisted. I don't even know the guy.
yeah,
So
and I've seen guys on Swimbait Universe, man, where they've given like, I mean, high dollar baits to like guys they barely know, and just because the guy maybe he said he was like new to the group and was like, oh, I don't have any really baits or anything like that, and then all of a sudden the guy sends him like a $300 bait, and it's just out of nowhere. But they do that, and it's really cool that I see that sometimes. I'm
yeah,
like, damn,
I can
you know,
appreciate that sort of generosity, because it. I think we all have a little bit of an assumption that doesn't exist very much in the world, where people are literally like having to wait in line and press order within minutes to acquire most of these baits. And, for lack of a better way of saying it, almost fighting over these baits, right? So the idea of somebody just
there was guys fighting.
giving one away is almost silly or just unbelievable. Like, quite frankly, I thought that this would end up being a knockoff. Uh, and if it was, I still wouldn't care, right? Like, I'm going to get one of
Yeah,
Debo's knockoffs, for a couple of reasons. One, because I just loved the color pattern that he had posted about. This was something like 2 weeks ago. He made a baby bass rainbow trout hybrid color pattern. Absolutely
Hmm.
wild and really clean looking. And so I reached out to him, and he pulled it off his site, and we're gonna kind of
Yeah,
do
his
a
paint
little.
jobs are nice, man.
Yeah, he's getting good really
They
quickly,
last a
and
and they last a pretty good long while. Like I used this a little bit, testing it out for him, like a whole day, and it didn't even get scratches on it. I was like, damn, that's better than the Clash baits.
right. Yeah,
I was like,
so tell me
Jesus.
about that, because that was one thing that we didn't talk about that I wanted to know.
Yeah,
Is that you can buy these blanks for 10, 15, less than 20 bucks a pop, right? Uh,
yeah,
on just online, right? There's one or two places where you can buy them. And obviously that's what Debo does. And then he works his magic with the paint, and then he's
yeah,
selling them for half the retail price at, 50 bucks or whatever, which um, I think is a reasonable price. I'm sure that he's making some decent money on those, but that he's got such a good following that people are willing to spend, kind of whatever he would ask. But with a lot of knockoff baits, there's an assumption that at the very least it's not the same bait, right?
yeah.
Um,
No,
some of them can get really close, but some of them look the same but act totally different. So
yeah,
tell
yeah,
us what your experience has been with at least that version of the knockoff that Debo has. You told us that
yeah,
those those weights in the bottom are loose and create
yeah,
a rattle or knocking sound. So that is obviously the main difference. But from a swimming standpoint, how the bait acts, and you did mention that you're swapping the tails for the original DRT tails. So
yeah.
what are you thinking in terms of the lip, the tail, the bait itself, and the action compared to, say, the original?
Well, the difference in pretty much from the original and the knockoff that I noticed was that the knockoff, like I said, made a little bit more noise, but as well wanted to roll side to side a little bit more, had more of like a sway to it as it was swimming, and then also the joints didn't want to move as much. It was kind of weird, but in a way, it still looked really good, and it dead walked really well, which was pretty cool to me. And it did go deeper than the normal clashes because it
Okay,
does weigh more for some reason. And but it does go deeper than the normal clashes a lot more, which is pretty weird to me, but I think has a benefit in a way, and
sure,
might be used in other places that you wouldn't want to probably use that $100 bait,
right,
or the one that you don't want to get lost. These would be a
sure,
little bit more affordable to, maybe if that ever happened, it
right.
wouldn't be as bad.
Yeah, you run the risk around heavier cover and feel a little bit more okay with the
Yeah,
potential loss, because
exactly.
everybody says, yeah, theoretically, you have to be prepared to lose whatever bait you're throwing in order to get around the right fish. But that is so much easier said than done for
Yeah.
95% of us. I mean, like we're not Ben Milliken just, losing multi-$100 baits on a daily basis and then just hopping online and replacing it same night.
Yeah,
Uh,
Justin Royal.
would be nice, but quite frankly, most of us, we get a $100 bait and we're scared to throw it, right? Like me with the slide swimmer 175. Like I've just been a puss where I shouldn't be. Um, but I'm nervous, right? At most of these places where I'm going to throw it, I'm hanging up crankbaits and other things that I don't really mind, but I'm not, at least when the water is below 50 degrees, I'm not wanting to strip down and go swimming in murky water to to make sure I'm getting this bait back. So
Yeah, trust me, I feel you, man. Like, when you lose your bait or get stuck on something, you're like, oh my god, what's going on? And then it really ruins your whole day in a sense, like when you're like in that mood of really trying to catch a fish, and you're all like really in trying to perfect something down, and then all of a sudden you think something bit your bait, and then you swing the bait, and all of a sudden it's
Right.
not moving, and you're like, oh, I know what that is. And it's
Yep.
not a fish.
Yep.
And you're like, damn, I just lost $100 and something dollar bait. And if you're on the bank, you're screwed. But that's the benefits of having like a kayak and being on the boat and having those type of things. You can go get those things back, and
Yep.
or have a chance of you know getting them back. But if you sling them off, you're done. There's most
Yeah.
likely never gonna get it.
Absolutely. Well, and
But
that's one more reason, another argument in your favor for using copolymer, right?
yeah, and also what I do is try not to, when I'm casting my swim baits, and I don't know why I've seen this so much too, but when I'm fishing my big baits, you really don't have to whip the rod
Right.
to
So
get
many
them
people
out.
are actually like full casting,
And I'm like,
full
dude, what are
size.
you doing? I'm like, that's
No,
like a
you
whip.
you can literally lob those things out there. You do
Yeah,
not
and
need
that's
to
all I
wind
do.
up.
That's all
You're
I do, and I kind of wait for the bait to get back, and then I pretty much look at it to stop swinging, and then I swing that pretty much in, or not swing it, but lob it, and pretty much it just sets out.
right
Like I'm not really even casting them hard, and they fly, and I'm
for
like,
sure.
what the hell? Why are people casting these baits so hard when I
Yeah.
cast them and I get almost across the damn lake?
Right.
So that's where I'm like, I try to tell people that all the time. Like, you don't really need to do that to get them out there, and you're just risking the chance of casting them off.
Right. No,
But
and you got to hope that most people are going to learn their lesson when that does happen, right?
yeah,
That you can actually like figure out what happened, right? Because it is your fault when that happens. It has to do with the way that you cast or the gear that you're using.
yeah,
And it's plain and simple. Usually it's the line that you're using, but then right behind that is how you're casting the bait.
yeah,
So yeah, that's for sure happened to everybody, but you would hope that when it does, and you're literally just watching it fly, and it's gone. There's no way you can get there, you can jump in the water, and then you can find it before it's out of reach. Like it's just not happening,
yeah.
you know. So it's a
Unless
damn
you got
shame.
some scuba gear or something, but
So Daniel sounds a little bit like William Plunkett, hopping in here, trying to watch, and then he's got a girl just needing the attention. I hear you though, man. Good for you. Just do
she's
something about
getting
it.
she's getting jealous of the topics.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a girl that wants your attention, but make it worth your while at the very least. Um, who's talking about Debo in here? I heard multiple people talking about Debo, and maybe it's because we were talking about him. I said he might be in here. We were talking about his knockoff that you tried out. Um, but Neil said he sees you everywhere and doesn't know if he's supposed to ask you on a date or what. I do see Neil in some other live streams as well. But
Yeah, I see Neil all the time too.
it looks like Ron Holly is in the house, leaving California tomorrow, headed to Rhode Island. As I mentioned a couple streams ago, dude dropped like $300 from Tackle Warehouse and stocked up on some goodies, including some like badass crankbaits and stuff that I do not have in my arsenal and that I'm jealous about. But hopefully, in just a few long months, Ron is no longer bassless and is catching pre-spawn fish and then bedding fish, and really starts to dial things in because he has consumed a lot of information, created a bunch of wish lists, and has now really started gearing up. And I am hoping for him that good things are coming in 2022, because being in California during COVID, it had to have been brutal. When you literally have no access, you can't leave your house, and then all the lakes are closed, and then there's
Yeah, that
wildfires.
was crazy. They did
It was
that.
just
Yeah.
one thing after another in California. So I'm happy for Ron. And Ron, I appreciate you being in here, man. So I'm not quite caught up, but mostly Neil got a couple baits from Debo. Um, Ron says, "Is that Debo's younger brother? Is he talking about you or what?" I mean, I guess you kind of look theoretically. You,
Ah,
you do look like a slightly younger and skinnier Debo, I guess, with the glasses on too.
yeah.
That's interesting. I never thought about that. That's funny though. Um, yeah, Neil, I hear you, man. Casting off any bait sucks. Even when it's a $8 Phil Lewis MR6.
Yeah, man.
Those
I
are
do
cool
too.
crankbaits.
I get mad when I cast off my, crankbaits that are JDM baits, and those are, not as expensive, but still in a good chunk of change. Shit, I remember when I went fishing with my dad, right? It was this year, and he doesn't really know too much about fishing. He knows that I like expensive baits and all that and stuff, but he doesn't understand about like the crankbaits I buy and all that. But one time we went this year fishing, and I gave him my rod and reel. Said, hey, pick any lures you want out of my box and whatever, and use them. And he goes and puts on a crank and starts messing around. Literally hooks up on a log or rocks or something. I have no clue, man. Literally, boom, snaps it off. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And it was a mega bass, 1.5 square bill, and I'm like,
Right.
Jesus.
You're
So
like,
then
all
I'm
right,
like, all
well,
right, just grab
I
another one,
changed my
whatever.
mind. At this point, I'm gonna choose what to tie on for you. If you're gonna fish like that, man, let's pull out something a little bit more mainstream.
Dude, I'm telling you, he grabbed another bait, puts it on, casts it out. 10 minutes later, oh man, I'm stuck. I'm like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. So I had no choice but to break it off because it's like 20 feet in the water. Break that one off. I'm like, all right, man, we're going to a spinner bait this time.
Right,
Give him,
exactly.
give him a, yeah, that's exactly what I said. I'm like, yo, here's a spinner bait, but it's a mega bass spinner bait. Okay. So he goes and I'm like, this should not get stuck. He starts casting it. He catches a little snakehead.
All right.
15 minutes later, casts it again, gone. Snagged
Oh
again. I'm
my
like, no
god.
way. I'm like, bro, how do you snag a damn spinner bait, man? I'm like, how's that even possible?
Right.
And that broke off. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So then he goes and says, he's like, oh, why are you frustrated? I'm like, Dad, you literally lost like $80 worth of lures, man. He's like, oh, how's that $80? And I'm like, dude, that's what I'm trying to tell you. That shouldn't even be happening right now. Dude, I was like, whatever. And he's like, oh, I'll replace him. I'll replace him. He never replaced him, man.
That's hilarious. You're like, Dad, I love you, but dude, I'm second guessing what we're doing here right now. Next time's gonna be a little different.
Yeah.
That is hysterical. Speaking of that MR6, that is a bait that I did not mention, but should have when Ray Kid Iraq was asking last week about DT6 comparisons, right? And we went through a whole host of mid divers. The MR6 is an awesome comparison, and one that just is a little bit less subtle, but a very similar bait in terms of the profile and the lip and the way that it acts. Of course, it's not balsa and is not silent, but
Yeah.
really good bait. So I don't know why that one evaded me in the moment. Like I just went to my box and was just like, well, here and here and here and here and here. Whoops. So everybody is finding your stories hysterical, as am I. Couple of really good stories. That first one of just how you watched what the fish were doing out of that pipe, and then your
Man,
dad just fucking everything up. That's hilarious.
I have some crazy stories, man.
So yeah, we're caught up on the comments. We've been on for an hour and 5 minutes. I'll leave it going for a little bit longer. Um, is there anything that you want to talk about tonight, man? Do you do any ice fishing once things freeze over? I mean, or do you do pretty much what the rest of us do and just kind of organize,
Um,
tackle, and plan for next year? And
Not yeah, pretty much. Last year we got kind of lucky. Really, there was no freezing over except for like one spot that I really have near me, which is like a lake it's sort of like a pond, but then it's connected to like the river through a dam system as well. But the other spot I go to is a river channel, and that spot never freezes, and it pretty much just stays really cold there. But the other spot, it does kind of get frozen over like 6 foot into the lake, but not the whole lake doesn't freeze.
right,
So, but the river channel near me never freezes, and the reason main why that doesn't really happen is because there's so much force from the
sure,
river going through in and out from the spot that's there
for sure.
that it's ridiculous that it never would freeze over. It's impossible.
Interesting. Are there largemouth in there, or is it what kind of fish do you
Yeah,
catch
it's
over there?
mainly largemouth, snakeheads, carp, but mainly largemouth. Oh, and some stripers,
Sure.
and but it's mainly largemouth that are there that I mainly catch, and but they just you'd be surprised, man. You in this spot alone, I've caught probably in the like probably around 100 something fish, and just because it's a river system and so many fish pass through there, pretty
Yep.
much season through season going, and it's pretty crazy.
That's awesome. So what how does your frequency of fishing and your style of fishing change in the cold weather, cold water months?
Well, I technically what I try to do in that area is there's a spot off the edge of the road that you pretty much have to get from the road and go to pretty much behind the woods to get to that spot. But on the
Right.
road, there's a little bridge there, and it's almost like an overpass, really. And that spot, the water there is about 12 to like 10 feet deep. And I tend to try and stay around that area. And a lot of guys stay there all year round, which is not, they really don't catch much there when they're staying there all year round. But in the wintertime, that's really the best spot to be because they just stay down there hanging by that bridge, waiting for fish just to come through. And they just literally ambush them on the bottom. But
Right.
I go there and I use a spoon.
Sure.
I also use a blade bait in that area where it's about that
Right.
6 to 8 feet deep, and sometimes I do use my flat sides as well. But recently they haven't been working for me. I don't know why. Maybe I guess it's just a little too cold.
Sure.
But I want to start using my jigs because I haven't got to that
Right.
point yet. I've been trying to stick more with the big baits and trying
Yeah.
to get that one last bite.
Right.
But
Yeah. And what do you never fish the Ned rig or
I
drop
really
shot?
don't like it.
Sure.
Um,
No, I don't blame you.
I've been trying to like get used to it or try to use it so that I can at least benefit from it. I know I hear it always catches fish and all that, so I really would like to try it to see if that would maybe help me out in this time because I heard it works really well in this time of year. So
Well,
you
I
know,
mean, especially if you're fishing in cold water for multi-species, right?
yeah,
That's the thing is you can catch more fish, arguably, um, on that smaller presentation than you can on a jig, but it's very similar in terms of where and how you're going to fish the bait. Uh, Theoretically, a little bit more you can do with it, but a lot of times you're going to get action on the fall or on that initial drop. Once the fish see it.
yeah,
Um, there's just something a little bit different about it. But if you're fishing in current, then that is going to mix things up, and you're probably going to have to go to a heavier head, which
yeah,
ultimately does change the presentation. But I don't know. You might want to look into like these new football Ned heads that
huh,
Z-Man just put out this year, and I think they come in a quarter ounce. This is a 3/16, but for a Ned head, that's relatively heavy. Generally speaking, you want to go with something like a 1/10, or even potentially lighter. If you read in Fisherman, freaking Ned Cady himself is real old school.
Yeah.
Dude catches a million fish, but he's fishing stuff on really light tackle, and he prefers like a 1/16 or a 1/32 ounce jig head, and fishes it super slow, and that causes the fall to be really slow. He gets bit on the fall like, I don't know, probably 40% of the time, and yeah, it's pretty insane. He prefers a hook when you consider the fact that like a standard Ned head from Z-Man, this is like a 1/10 ounce, has a size 1 hook on it, really
Yeah.
small. When you go to something else like a Gamakatsu or owner, like and even the Strike King heads, like these are a bunch of the ones that I'm going to give away in the Ned Rig giveaway coming up. But I guess this has a size 1 hook because it's a 1/16, but that Gamakatsu has a screw lock on it. Same deal, but that's 3/32. The owner blockhead does come with a 1/0 hook on it most of the time. This is the offset, so it's a weedless version, kind of
Yeah.
like the lifted jigs, which were one of the first to create that EWG Ned head before it really took off. And then owner's got the same thing. That's a 2/0 hook on there, but most Ned heads are going to have like a
Yeah, I got those right there.
that's a heavy duty 2/0 hook.
Yeah, that's the one I have.
The owner blockhead, this is their
And those.
standard one, comes with a 1/0 hook, right?
Yeah.
And so usually we're talking a size 1 or 1/0 hook, and Ned Cady prefers like a size 4, like tiny, dude, which is crazy. But if you're fishing in current, you're definitely going to want to go with something on the heavier end in the ballpark of like a 1/4 ounce, and ideally something that's 1/0, maybe 2/0 even, depending on the plastic that you're using. But yeah,
And
you
you
should
did
try
you
it.
use a spinning rod for that?
Not if you're
Mainly?
using a 1/4 ounce. If you've got something that's like a true medium action, you'd be medium power, you'd be fine. But ordinarily, yeah, I do prefer a medium light spinning setup. So, but that's because I'm using like the 1/10 or even the 1/16 a lot of the time. I'm
Yeah.
throwing it where I've got sandy bottoms for the most part, some sparse rock, and I'm fishing anywhere from 3 to 10 feet deep. But I like it a lot. Only thing is, when you start to fish around more rock and wood, you get hung up a shitload. So that EWG comes in handy, as
Yeah.
do just standard weedless Ned heads. Um, I don't know that I have any just sitting right here, but those can be super handy. And like, here's a jig that I tied out of one of those heads. So the weedless finesse shrooms jig head just comes with a 2-strand wire keeper, and it's actually pretty reasonable on there, where it fishes more like a traditional jig. So
Yeah.
it doesn't come with a skirt on it, and in fact, it doesn't have a skirt keeper. So I wire tied this down pretty hard,
Yeah.
and
I like that though. It looks good.
once you actually have a trailer on there, the skirt isn't going to go anywhere, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do think that the Ned rig is, it's hard to say underrated, but it's a good presentation for sure. But But if you're going to throw plastics, yeah, Ned, Nico, or drop shot in that same situation would be worth giving it a shot. Ron, you're dirty, dude. Sandy
You know what?
bottom.
I never actually explained also the thing about with the Clash about the Mike Gilbert thing. The reason why what happened was how he got into the whole collab was that Mike Gilbert is really cool with the guys from the DRT people, and he's actually really cool with a bunch of other Japanese makers. He's actually throwing a bait at the moment that you can't even buy in the U.S. or they won't even ship to the U.S.
Interesting.
So
How do you know that? Is he talking about it on Swimbait Underground or what?
no, he's not talking about it. You got to actually just pay attention in the pictures that he posts.
Sure.
And he has a picture of the bait, and it's from Suplex. And the guy who makes that bait, man, I'm telling you, that bait is out, like completely performed not in wide, just like in the aspect of how it swims and all that. The hardware he uses, the way he has the hardware made, and all that is just like top performance quality. It's crazy.
But the
And
way that the bait is made, or the way that Mike is using it?
no, the way the bait's actually made, the bait itself has like some crazy hardware. It uses actually screws versus a little tiny pin, and it actually you can screw in the body to the actual bait and change the actual bait from a 2-piece to
Weird.
a 3-piece.
Wow.
And this is all a wood bait. This is not like regular resin or nothing like that. So
Jeez.
it's really crazy.
Yeah. It makes you
And
wonder why, in this day and age that is pretty knockoff heavy, I wonder why. And even if we're not talking knockoffs, right? Like I saw on I jumped on for a few minutes last night when Alex Rudd had Edwin Evers on his stream, and they were talking about the Berkeley Agent E, right? Which my first impression is, dude, that's a straight up knockoff of the Dark Sleeper, right?
yeah,
But at this point now, there are a handful of them on the market, and a lot of people would defend it by saying like that's just how the industry goes. You're gonna get that right when you
yeah.
can't patent a design. Everybody's gonna come out with their own version. But Edwin described it a little differently, and I thought this was interesting. That and he was really in favor of the Agent E. I guess he like helped design it, even though he's been with Megabass forever, right? I don't know
Yeah.
if he still is or not, but he's also been a Berkeley guy. So it was fascinating to hear him talk about and defend the fact that it's not really a knockoff. There are a lot of things that make the bait different, but more importantly, you got to look at the fact that it's not just the Dark Sleeper and nothing else. Like the Dark Sleeper helped create a new category of baits in a way.
Yeah, style.
It's a new thing, right? That is a hybrid type of bait between a
Yeah,
swim bait and a jig.
jig. Yep.
And that is something that in a number of years we're going to look back and it's going to be super mainstream. It's not just going to be the Dark Sleeper, right? There's going to be 10 different versions of it. When you look at a certain type of crankbait, when you look at a square bill, theoretically, everybody who made a
They're all
square bill,
knockoffs.
first one, all knocked it off, but they all have slight variations. But it's the same concept,
To be
right?
honest, man, if you go and look at some old school videos of guys who collect head-ins and old school baits, man, you'll realize there is absolutely no such thing as a new bait, a new
Right.
design, and it's impossible to really even say it is new because I've seen old head-in baits and old baits in general that literally are copies of new baits, even swim baits, and it's nuts. Like I've seen an old head-in swim bait. I didn't even know they made swim baits, and
Right.
they had this old musky swim bait jointed swim bait, and it looks almost exactly like this bait. And I'm not gonna diminish the guy's stuff or nothing like that, but I even have, one of his baits because it was one of my dream baits, and that's Pat's bait, and
Right.
he freaking has I think it's a gill or the snack, and it almost looks exactly like the old head and bait, but it's just a
Right.
refinement of that bait, and
Sure.
that's pretty much all it is. It's just making those baits a little bit better than what they were from back in the day,
Totally.
and that's just how I view it.
Yep. No, and that's my long-winded way of saying I wonder why we're not starting to see some of these concepts make their way from Japan to the US and vice versa more quickly.
Yeah,
Like we all just kind of assume that it's only a matter of time until that Japanese modular wooden bait makes its way to the US. Um, but why aren't guys finding inspiration from something like that and realizing that there is a huge opportunity in the market now for there to be something here? And
and
it doesn't need, like, who gives a shit if there's going to be a bunch of people saying, "Hey, that thing already kind of exists." It's honestly, I hate to bring up the fact that it feels a little bit like the Berkeley Gilly and the Issei uh, Gill Flat, right?
yeah,
Um, that was pretty damn blatant and a little bit annoying, but what are you going to do about it?
yeah,
If you see a bait that's been out for a long time elsewhere and has not made its way here, and it's a good idea, and you've got the ability to create it at a cheaper price in better color patterns and make it readily available to a brand new market,
yeah,
if everybody's going to fall in love with it at that point, then sorry to the Japanese company that didn't make it happen in Japan and bring it over here and make it happen here. Like, yeah, I think it's a little bit sketchy. It just feels that way that
yeah,
somebody's like, going overseas to find like hidden gems and then just make replicas of them here. But
yeah,
to Edwin Evers' point, why not just make your own spin off of the same concept? It doesn't have to be a pure knockoff. Why not just break it down, reverse engineer the bait and say
yeah.
it's the modular concept that is a big deal these days? And wouldn't it be that much cooler if we could make a wooden bait instead of a plastic injected bait? Um, where we can change it from a two-piece to a three-piece with a pin in the middle of the bait. And just come up with some really unique
And
ideas, but then create a different shape of the bait, create
yeah,
a different weighting, a different action. Because
there's
quite
a guy
frankly,
actually in a company which is he's doing something that's kind of nobody else is doing with resin bait wise, and he has that same tech pretty much same idea as that guy that's doing in Japan,
right,
and it's actually called from FMTC baits, and they have a similar bait, and it's called the shot collar kit, and it pretty much is a versatile, pretty much like a ghost in a way of the DRT, where you can do about 15, 16 damn different things.
right,
And but pretty much with a resin bait, and it's all in one, and it's a kit, and it gives you a three-piece tail or a section, so it ends up turning into a multi-swimmer. And then you also have the two-piece, which turns it into a glide, and then you have another one which turns it into just a regular swim. But then you have the difference of all three of those. And then also it comes with different lips, three different lips that you can then change out anytime you want. It also comes with weighted lips so that you can put in replacement of the lip itself. So if you don't want a lip in there and you just want a multi-piece swimmer, you can just put that lip in there and it'll help balance the bait out. And then also you can balance the weight of the bait out itself with the weights they give you, which is like 4 different weights or 3, and you can put them in the slot that they have built into the bait, and then you just screw the bait in with an Allen key every time you're going to finish putting that piece together, and it keeps it in really well. and I really want one too as well. I would actually trade like a ghost for it. That's how good it is, and it's a really nice bait, and it's really well designed. Swims really well, and they're a little expensive. But then when you look at it as to way as how many baits you really have in the end, compared to buying 3 or 4 different custom baits,
Right.
it's worth it.
Interesting. Um, so FMTC is the name of the company, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Um, yeah, I'm surprised there's not more of that kind of thing on the market and
Yeah.
becoming more readily available because it's still,
I think really that's the next phase, really.
yeah, is baits that are a little more interchangeable. This is
Yep.
not at all the same thing, but um, an interesting, doesn't look high quality, but an interesting design that Jimmy Houston just made for Lucky Strike is this crankbait. I forget what it's called, but you put these inserts. It's a clear bait with a slit or a
Ah,
slot in the center of the bait, and
I know
you
you're talking
put
about.
like this card that is the paint scheme inside the bait.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then you can take that out and put a new one in, and essentially you're just changing the color pattern of the bait by doing that. It looks
Yeah.
really chintzy and like it's probably not done very well, but it's kind of an interesting concept that you could
Yeah.
have one bait be multiple color patterns in no time, right?
Yeah.
Like it's probably only a matter of time till you can shake the bait or click it or something, and it just changes
Yeah,
color patterns to something that looks great, right?
that's true, man.
Interesting. So a couple questions here. Neil wants to know if you fish the Delaware River. Sounded like you do.
Yeah, yeah. I fish pretty much the channels that run into the Delaware because since I'm from the bank, I can't really get into the main river itself. So I fish from the
Right.
bank into the river channels that break off from the Delaware.
Sure.
So yeah,
Okay. And Michael wants to know about the Pistol Pete and the Sneaky Pete. I've only tried the Sneaky Pete. Was going to buy a Pistol Pete recently. I don't think I ended up pulling the trigger on that. Um, though I could be mistaken. I had a couple of smaller glide baits in my cart at Tackle Warehouse, and I think I tossed them out. You guys saw me open the Savage Gear Shine Glide in their smaller, like 5 1/4 inch, just because the price from Discount Tackle is too damn good. Uh, so I thought I would try it because I like the standard Shine Glide, and I thought I might fiddle around with small glide baits, and now I'm wondering if, how much I actually will or not. But the Sneaky Pete is a really good bait for the money. Honestly, I
yeah,
think it does have a loud knock, so it's a pretty loud glide bait.
yeah. That's
But
one thing that is different about it.
yeah, and I don't know generally how much I like that, but it
Yeah,
has a pretty loose joint and yet a very smooth action compared to a lot of other baits in its category. And I think
yeah,
it's a little bit easier to work than, it's probably about the same price as like the Storm Arashi Glide, right? Something in that like $35 price range,
yeah,
something like that. And so it's a relatively cheap mid-sized glide bait. Um, but it's got a really good action to it that, quite frankly, I think is better than you'd find out of like the S waiver.
yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Even
I would
the
actually rather
200.
recommend that Pete, the Pistol Pete or Sneaky Pete than the S waiver.
Right. And the S waiver 200 is more like $45.
Yeah,
So you're saving some money, and the size is pretty damn similar with the Sneaky Pete versus the S waiver 200. And I think the S waiver is an overrated glide bait.
yeah,
It's known as the go-to entry-level glide bait, especially the 168. Tactical Bassin has done a remarkable job at marketing that bait and
Yeah.
selling the shit out of it
Oh yeah.
because it does catch fish. And they're really good fishermen, and they've got a lot of video footage of them catching big fish on those baits. But
Yeah.
when you put multiple baits in the water and watch what they do, it's got kind of a mediocre action. Looks a little lazy. It's hard to make it look super smooth, and
Yeah.
I don't know how versatile it is. A lot of people will like sand down the joints and do different things to make it work the way that they want it to.
Yeah.
But at that point, I would just
You
say
might as well save up.
go to the yeah. I mean, but why not just get a sneaky Pete? You know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's just me.
And
Uh,
Milliken has a good video on that as well. And he says literally what you just said, like it may work or, it may cost you a little bit less, but the action on it is way less than what you expect than, other glide baits that you get for like 10, $15 more. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, I even like the Shine Glide more than I like the S Waver, if we're being honest. It's a very different profile because the Shine Glide is
yeah.
like a true gizzard shad type of profile,
Yeah,
much
the Shine
taller
Glide I
in
like too.
nature.
I'd recommend that as well.
Right. It is a tall bait, whereas the S Waver is a little bit more narrow. Uh, but it all comes down to how it swims, how it acts when you work the bait, especially when it's a glide bait. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, Michael, yeah, they're good baits for sure. Um, do recommend them. Neil says he likes the owner blockhead. Yeah, kind of hard not to, dude. Anything that owner does is really good. I like the regular blockhead a little bit more than the EWG, but I like them both for sure. Um, Ron loves the Agent E, but obviously hasn't fished it. Um, I don't know what you love about it, man. Don't know what you love about it, but that's cool. Neil says, yeah, the live target goby is very similar. You're right. I've got that bait too. It doesn't hide the hook, but it says it's the same bait. Uh, what's Neil saying? When I was a kid at the dollar store, they had a lipless that came with different color cards. You could change the color of the bait. Thought it was the coolest thing. Yeah. Well, the dollar store had them, huh? That's pretty wild. My dollar store doesn't sell fishing gear.
That'd be a good
And
dollar store.
are you familiar with this spot that Neil's talking about?
The fish from
Morrisville side of the river?
Nah, I haven't went to the Trenton area fishing Delaware. I'm mainly in the South Jersey area, towards uh, like Mantua area, Greenwich.
Thinking about just how close to home you want to mention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, guys, we are an hour and 34 minutes in, and it's getting late on my end. I say it's getting late on my end, but it's middle of the night for Matt almost. So, dude, I super appreciate you hopping on. It was fun to do this, and
Yeah.
and get to see you face to face as opposed to just kind of chat in the live chat and on Instagram and such. But
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for
Yeah. No problem,
being
man.
willing to do that, especially last minute, and to inform me and the rest of us on this bait. It seems
Yeah.
really cool. I am going to fiddle with the lip after the live stream. I'm gonna hop off here.
Just be careful, man. Do not hook yourself.
Yeah, people were talking about how ballsy you are for just fooling around with the hooks, as wildly as you were when you were pulling out those owner hooks, and just kind of fiddling around, holding them up, but anyway, I hear you. So, guys, thank you so much. If you haven't already, hit the thumbs up button. We're gonna dip out of here, and yeah, super appreciate your guys' willingness to hang out and your interest and contributing in the chat. So Neil, Adam, Abe, Ron, whoever else is in here, appreciate you guys.
See you guys.
See you again soon. Peace out, Ferg.